again for this is by Juan Cicada. It's Honest No BS, and it's here in London.
And it's only Wednesday, and it's been already. We're tired.
Yeah, we've been at the Gartner Data Analytics Conference in London, UK. It is the end of the conference, day 3, and we actually are going to get together with a bunch of other and celebrate on Friday, because this is a very special week.
Yes, it is 4 years.
4 years
of doing this podcast. That remember that thing that started 4 years ago, a little bit over 4 years ago.
Yeah,
that little thing called COVID. Yeah. So that was the whole start of it.
Yeah. So I can't believe it's been 4 years. It was over 4 years ago, right? And pandemic was happening. And we're like, man, what are we going to do to like connect with people in data and talk with you? We're not going to conferences anymore. Let's hop on.
That's how it all started.
Because it all started with Zoom, right? And just hanging out with some friends. And we were like, let's call it catalog and cocktails. We'll drink and talk about data.
So I'm just looking here. The first episode was May 13th, which was this past Monday, exactly 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we did 32 episodes actually. Mm-hmm. Just the two of us talking. I think we had a couple of guests.
We had a couple of guests. Like there was DJ Patil one time.
And then we also had,
but it was mostly just us talking.
It was just us talking like that. And then who was our first guest?
Our
Peter
first
Bayless.
Official guest. Yeah.
That was our first official guest. And then it just started from there. Yeah. We've had now a total of 100 with this episode right now. I think it's 182. Some of like the takeaway up. We didn't have guests, and there's some ranting episodes and stuff like that.
But roughly speaking, 182 episodes. Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
So what is okay? We really didn't spend time doing the takeaways of the takeaways. So off the top of your head, what are the things that have just marked you in the last 4 years of conversations we've had on the podcast?
So I think some of the biggest things that have struck me 4 years, right? Last 4 years. The rise maybe of the data mesh. We had Jamak Dagani on, and we've talked to a few different folks about data contracts and data mesh and things like that. So
we actually had Jamak on 20 years ago. And then since then it was a huge thing, and then everybody there was like, oh, data mesh and data fabric just because of the Gartner stuff here, and now it's kind of we don't talk that much about products now all the time.
Data products. So mesh up and down, right? Thing I'll note, and I'm curious what you would say is I think been an appreciation in data management to people, the empathy, curiosity, change management, right? That I think has true, but at least now is more explicit.
Yeah, the people aspect has always been something that has, I think, started 4 years ago was something that was kind of implicit and was coming up, but then so many times over and over again, it would just become more and more of a big deal. And I mean, look, I don't want to start calling out like on guests and stuff because I know we're going to miss out on folks, but I will say that there was another thing we asked, what is your advice? Ergist said, empathy, curiosity.
Yeah.
Like be empathetic. And that's always stuck with me. And I think that's what we need more. People has definitely been one of those things that has always been a thread throughout everything we've been talking on the podcast. So that's one of them. And then so what else do you have? I got some notes I'm looking into.
Like other things that come to mind are knowledge graph. Obviously, it's been a big theme throughout a bunch of episodes, right? I always remember Bob Muglia coming on, former CEO of Snowflake, and talking about the importance of, coming from the relational world and the importance of sort of the modern resurgence of the cloud data warehouse, right? But the fact that knowledge graphs are going to be the future. Governance is actually the first application on knowledge graphs. I'll always remember that.
Yeah, and I think I will acknowledge that this is something that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm biased. This has been my entire career that I've been wanting to. Honest, no BS. We have this platform because I genuinely believe it's the right thing to go do. But I think also, I mean, it's cataloging cocktails for a reason, right? And I think that has consistently been there and gotten stronger and stronger. Not just the data catalog as a technology, as a platform, but it's all the metadata, the semantics, and now with Gen AI, all this context, and now definitely knowledge graph is on, is all over the place. And we'll talk later about what's going on. Metadata consistently has been something, another one of those stronger and stronger. And then quick parentheses, we just jumped into this stuff, and man, cheers. we got some cocktails.
Cheers. Wait, so what are we doing everything out of order today? It's been a long week. So what are you drinking?
I'm just having gin and tonic. We're in London, why not?
Yeah, that's traditional London style. Yeah. So I decided to go with more of a less of a London tradition and more of a catalog and cocktails tradition, which is an old fashioned. Which is, I always say, like, we try not to repeat cocktails.
But that's the one.
But if we do, it's going to be an old fashioned.
Anyways,
so,
cheers, man.
Cheers.
Cheers to 4 years of doing this. Oh. All right, so we said rise and death of the modern data stack.
Yep.
Rise. I mean, I think it's death, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Data mesh, fabric, whatever, foes and friends are they now?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that has been the data product, treat data as a product, right? Data product managers, and that has been another of the big themes.
Mm-hmm. And those things have really stuck in terms of data mesh.
Talked about now knowledge graph, semantic layers. I think that was
metric layers.
But that was interesting because I think that was like a little blip in time.
And so metric layers, we're our time at Gartner DNA. I don't know why, if people are reminiscing but it seems like people are kind of connecting the dots between, remember when metrics layer was coming up, and now kind of this focus on semantics.
Especially because when people want to go have these chat with your data type of systems, these question answering systems, they're going to be asking questions about metrics. So the question is, where are these metrics going to be stored? And stuff. So,
and how to calculate.
All right, social side of we talked about this, the people, teams, culture, literacy, storytelling. I think storytelling is something that we actually had a couple episodes of storytelling, but this is something I believe that it's going to start seeing more now.
Yeah. Agreed.
Now, governance. I'll tie that together with like metadata stuff, but governance has always been another theme throughout the entire podcast. And I think the big one that wasn't in the first 2 years, I would say, but has been more in the last 2 years is the business value.
Oh yeah, business value. Yeah. Data people, right? We have to be thinking about the impact that we're having on the business and become less obsessed about data literacy, right? The business people getting data literacy, and get a little more obsessed about data people having business literacy.
Exactly. And then we need, the other topic is the Gen AI, the large language model. Like that has been one of the big topics right now. So that's like a fair summary. I mean, I'm thinking right now.
What else? I mean, one other thing I'll note is I think as the modern data stack kind of trend has kind of risen and fallen, I'll say of the traditional best practices around data housing, right? Like Kimball and just general sort of dimensional modeling around your data, right? And secondly is like good old how old it is at this point, but like data engineering. Just like I connect my systems together, I got to make the right things happen.
Yeah, I think that and now with the whole AI and large language models, we're seeing the need for semantics. Like this is something that is now strong on people's mind. Is we need to go invest in the semantics and the modeling, and that we want to be able to provide great, beautiful data, so we can give that context to LLMs. Like that's where it's going to come from. So,
for those of you that are listening, what have been some what some of your favorite episodes are, some of your favorite moments, and I'm curious, where do you think this is all going as we go forward? What's the next 4 years of catalog and cocktails going to be all about?
So yeah. If you think, because we look, the honest no BS is that we don't even know what we're going to do next, right? Let's go.
We didn't know we were going to do this for 4 years. Who knows if we're doing this for another 4 years?
You don't know. So just reach out to us. Let us know what else.
Talking about that, we should talk more about.
So
what are we not talking about?
What should we start doing that we're not doing? What should we stop doing that we're doing? What should we continue doing? What should we kind of change things a little bit? So yeah, reach out to us, let us know. But okay, so talk. We could, on Friday we'll be talking more about
one last thing before we kind of move on. We've got some different shirts going on, and I know that our listeners be able to tell. So we've got new wave details, and actually we have an even newer logo that maybe will show up on a shirt at some point. And here we, unfortunately, for those who are watching the video, the owl blends in a little too much with the shirt. The original first shirts we made.
Exactly.
And new. And soon to be old
and
again.
For folks who will reach out, who are coming over on Monday, on Friday to our house.
Yes.
All right.
We got t-shirts, and for those that are listening, if you're a fan, you love ping us, we'll find a way to get you a shirt.
Yeah.
But it won't have special.
No, that's for our next business.
Yeah, we'll start that business someday.
All right. Well, thank you. We're in the highlights.
Partner. Honest has been a fun 3 days. We're a little bit biased. There's a little honest no BS here, and that like Data.World's catalog company. Big theme throughout the entire conference has been around metadata and the importance of metadata to a lot of things, of course, but especially AI. It is the context for Gen AI as we go forward.
I think what has been very clear right now is that generative AI is actually reigniting the topic of metadata, and it's like this forcing function, right? I think we acknowledge that we live in like this chaotic world, and we need to start kind of organizing it for AI. And the way to go manage that complexity is through managing that metadata. So I think that is, I mean, before metadata was like that second class citizen governance, and now it's useful with AI. We need to be able to have we need to start cleaning up the data. That's why quality is going to be so important, and we'll be able to have all the lineage and observability, and so to talk about trust and explainability, and then people around. Right now, I think anybody who's thinking about AI, all these topics of metadata and governance, becoming necessary, and people are going to try to figure out how to take this. So right now, you're not focusing on metadata. Your competitor. So focus.
And it was very late in the cut. I'll fast forward because we're talking about metadata. Robert Thunder gave a talk on sort of the student space and where it's going. And he had a few different themes about convergence. During the modern data stack, I saw everything kind of breaking apart. Now we see kind of the convergence where, you've got the more unified data platforms kind of coming together and things congealing around certain spots like, like integration and like governance. He talked about Gen AI, obviously, as being a really key thing. But then the third thing, or in middle, was actually originally metadata was thought of as exhaust, right? But now going forward, we're going to think of metadata as a first-class citizen. You're going to be thinking, is it in a standard format? Can I put it in my knowledge graph, feed it to my Gen AI, right? So this is going to become a first-class concept in everything you do with every tool. Can I get my ETL metadata? Can I get my data warehouse metadata? Can I get my BI metadata? Can I get my semantic layer metadata? Right.
And I think what's really important about the metadata aspect is that it helps you understand where you should put your focus on.
Mhm.
So that's how you know what people are using, like how complex are things, and then again tying it back to the business value. It's gonna say, well, I got all this data. Here's what I'm trying to go do from my business perspective. Making that connection is going to happen through metadata to understand. I think like even we're talking about, I think in that same talk, there was about like we want to do decision intelligence, and this is actually came up in the keynotes too. It's like we need to understand how this business is working, and I want to understand how do we do operational excellence? How do we understand better our customers?
Yeah.
All of this is to be able to go connect all your data, and this brings up to another big topic, which I mean I am super thrilled that knowledge. A key topic, and I wrote about this on LinkedIn today. Kind of blew up a bit. Mark Beyer, one of the very distinguished analysts here at Gartner, he gave this talk on the top 10 trends of data engineering and integration. Trends was SMH graphs is key, and what is that they actually called out, like even the state.
Yeah, they had a bullet that said W3C standard.
So and he does acknowledge that it is a state of mind, right? So again, this is like it's the Wittgenstein quote. It's just think about how once you start thinking about that, it's how you're going to start integrating your data, your metadata, your people, your one of those trends for data engineering. Did as knowledge graphs are going to be part of your generative AI. This is the big trend. So I'm really excited, and I'm so thrilled that this is like I've been doing for decades.
This is the inflection point of knowledge graphs, which is exciting, and it's becoming a central point of AI.
That's one thing very clear that it's like people is that to bring all that is coming from the knowledge graph. So that was another big thing. So metadata, knowledge graphs, to put that together. What else?
So this might be a segue. So at some point, I want to come back to the opening keynote. I know we're kind of doing things out of order here, but I think there's an interesting segue here because we talked about metadata, we talked about knowledge graph, we talked about Gen AI. There was a weird conflict in the area of Gen AI at this conference, which I think that if we want to be critical, right, honest, no BS, it felt so. Juan and I, we know a little bit more about the Gen AI space. I know there's probably a lot of attendees at Gartner that are a little newer, still trying to wrap their head around it, right? A lot of the content at Gartner focused around the importance of, data governance and a strong data foundation to create AI-ready data to then, be service Gen AI. But there's a bit of a most of the AI applications at App State are really focused on unstructured textual data, either fed in through prompts or being fed in, as in a being used as augmented general texture with AI agent, right? Data is treated very differently than what traditional governance and data quality and everything. So, like, we're talking all about these data. Gen AI applications are using unstructured data, like this will eventually,
but
right?
And this is not just an issue here at this conference. So many different places. And I think there's just the assumptions right now. Generative AI. Well, first of all, you're using the word AI and generative AI kind of interchangeably when they're
true.
So then we were like, oh yes, either use the word AI, you need to have AI ready data. But look, when it's generative AI, it's usually text. So what is data quality over text unstructured data? What does data governance over unstructured data mean? You know what? Nobody knows. I mean, actually, people who probably know are people who've been working on these content management. It's not professionals actually go work for.
Steeped in the structured data world, there are things out there, document management systems, CMS. There's things like open text and other things out there. There's a whole space around unstructured data that like we kind of don't think about, that is actually probably closely related than the structured data stuff at the moment.
So this is the big disconnect, right? And actually, it's super frustrating when people are giving talks here and even hallway conversations of like, oh yeah, we need to use the principles of management for data to go fine tune your LLM. It's like, wait, you fine tune your LLM with like some unstructured stuff. You're not going to use your traditional data models for structure. So that is a confusing thing. So that's something that I think everybody needs to wake up and, okay, what are you talking about? Unstructured data, structured data? Like, how does this tool look? And like, really be very critical of this. Like, this is annoying.
And the comment that you made, the percent realistically, because it can apply to machine learning or more traditional AI threads. But Gen AI specifically, there's
not just from the Gartner, but from
it's bigger than just Gartner. It's the whole wrap their head around this. Yeah.
But then talking about like AI ready data, what's interesting here is that
that was the theme.
The AI ready was all over the place, but it's actually, they said it's AI ready. AI ready data means it's actually data for a particular use case.
Yes.
But they left it as that.
Yeah.
So it's like, unpack it a little bit more, but no. I think people are still trying to figure out what it is, especially because I think there's this confusion of unstructured and structured. What does AI ready? What does AI ready mean for your unstructured stuff? So I think that's one of the it's for your use case, but we need more details.
I was actually happy with that as a kind of a recommendation, a little bit more details. But I do think you might be grappling with like, hey, am I AI ready or am I not? I think like it is like AI ready is in the context of that.
That's true. So you should think about my AI. It is, think about what things are going to change for the use cases. Again, they're going to be unstructured, which is going to be different from the structured and so forth.
Yep.
So the same. There's a talk on data mesh and data fabric type of stuff. But look, if we kind of unpack everything, at the end of the day, the data mesh and all the work that credit goes to Shamak. Well, so be a podcast. I won't forget. Data products really changed the data world.
Yeah. So just to remind our listeners here, like data mesh has kind of four main tenets, right? There's domain-driven architecture, right, or domain-driven ownership, right? There's
the self-service platform.
Self-service platform. There's data products, or data as a product, right? And then federated computational governance, right? So those are the four main tenets of data mesh.
And out of that, I think now we're talking a lot more about governance. So I think that's one thing.
Governance,
but the data products, right? Your data product, and actually very specifically, I have here the definition they put out. Three things.
So this is the Gartner definition.
Yeah, findable and consumption ready. Second, it's kept up to date. And third, governance for appropriate usage. Look, I think that's very, very spot on.
That's actually a pretty clean definition, right?
And then what was interesting, and they showed this up in one of the keynotes, was that they did actually like a word cloud from all Gartner customers on what they were using the data products for. And these are business oriented and business value impacts. And the words were benchmarking, price negotiation, soft market cycle, customer experience, portfolio insights. So it's really great to go see that people are being able to go tie the business value impact.
Yeah, these are business impacting use cases.
Yeah. So I think that was the data products. I think data products are, I mean, you can go get devils in the details now. The notion of treating data achievable and a particular use case.
And closely related to data products, in a few different sessions, I heard mention of data sort of this as a role our talked about roles a lot, and both positivity and skepticism about new roles. But one about, and Gartner obviously is pushing this as well, is data product manager, somebody who's really going to take product management principles and ownership and accountability and cross business collaboration and drive a roadmap around these usable products. And it's not just about data. It can be data products, they can be AI products, they can be analytic products, but it's these products more and more product managers, whether officially they have the or not. It's a practice we're going to see really take off.
To the data product, like here, I got my notes. Well, business value. Like about these 4 kind of principles in a way, or that CDOs are going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So change culture, create strategy, manage the function, and then governance. And what was really interesting, a lot of the focus today is around change culture and create strategy, but those are things that are moving the needle. And to move the needle, we really need to just better manage the function, right? And then governance. And what's really interesting is that on the governance side, it's how we're going to be able to empower and enable people to go use the data for the stuff that's going to move the needle. So that is, again, the focus always happened over and over again, and also talked about. Fit definitely is going to be all over the place, especially now with like spending more money on and leaders. Like, you can't be centralized. You go franchise us out. So I think that's a very interesting point.
I've heard quite a few. We've done a few networking events and stuff, after the conference days, and I've heard quite a few people really resonate with this. And I find that a little bit, honestly, a little surprising that some people get so excited about it. But I guess it's distinctive because, you've got sort of this hub and spoke model being some your sort of decentralized aspects, but the spokes can't really exist without the hub, right? So that's kind of one model. And then you centralize, then franchise model, which Gartner, and I've heard multiple independent people use that example about Russia, right? The Japanese McDonald's is going to be a little bit different McDonald's, right? But there's some things that are the same, and so you differences and you incorporate core principle process, which is cool.
Yeah, and I think the CDO now, you have to understand the business. I think the whole we only years or 18 months or whatever. It's like, it's because you don't understand technical. Like, is probably over now, I would think. And it's one of the things they said is, how does the organization and values operational efficiency, or if the value is for intimacy, then you have to talk that language. If your focus is on like being obsessed about customers, don't talk about.
Each company has us as a DNA.
Yeah.
And get us
exactly. What else? What else do you? What else are here? I got more things.
I want to mention, remind, kicked off the theme of intelligence, and I thought that was a little bit wordy and high level. At second, I think about that choice of word and the way that they talked about it, right? Like they were using imagery of animals. And one of those images that kept on showing up was of a bee, right? And I think we're all trying to grapple with, Gen AI and kind of advances in AI, but then all the people aspects, right? The knowledge that lives in our head and in our heads and things that people are doing and collective intelligence, right? They gave some examples. They talked about, for example, where a company, a pharmaceutical company, trying to develop new drugs, right? Normally, it would take 10 years. This company is now able to deploy drugs in a few months. They gave another example where they talked about job postings and a job kind of posting automation company, right? And where normally it would take 90 minutes to write a job advertisement, and they were able to get it down to 5 minutes. But what was interesting when they talked about all these examples, it wasn't just pure Gen AI, like, oh, the Gen AI did it, right? It was the collaboration between humans and machines working together, taking the knowledge out of people's heads, the things that only humans can do, and then the things that AI can only do, and how those things work in sort of a symbiosis together. And so, despite this word feeling a little icky and a little buzzwordy, right? Collective intelligence. I'm excited about that as a theme to say, how do we use the combination of human and robots to do the best thing?
Yeah, an emphasis on solving problems and creating value collaboratively.
Yeah,
I think, and it goes back to one of the themes that we've always had. It's the people aspect, and right now it's not just automating things and making sure the machines do things. It's involved with stuff,
kind of working more effectively, and every more.
We had Peter Hinton had the talk on his concept of the never normal.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal talk.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look Peter up. Peter Hinton. The never normal is we don't live in this new normal. It's in this never normal. Like, we are in a completely changing world all the time, and where something tiny can make another change. And it goes back to, like, I bring up the example, like you're in the Suez Canal, and then sideways a little bit, and then the economy of the world can go kaput for a while because of that, right? Totally changing. One of the examples I saw is how they were comparing how communications are changing kind of from different generations. And there's like this whole area, there's this whole group of, oh, you have email, but young folks today, they don't have emails, or they don't communicate on emails. But if they have an email, what he said is vintage websites that need an email to access. That is why I have emails, because they're this concept of vintage websites. So, like, these are the stuff that is now changing constantly. We don't even know what's going to happen next. We live in this world of unknowns, so we need to have this fluidity. So I think a bunch of great quotes that got me reminded, right? The danger in times of turbulence is acting with yesterday's logic. That's a famous quote from Peter Drucker. So I think
that's a Peter Drucker
that's
quote,
a Peter Drucker quote around that. Otherwise, he had great quotes. I'm going to just name a couple ones here.
Yeah.
There is more fiction and actually, like, when is the moment where most fake news comes? During budget season, because we come up with all these numbers and we end up writing that fake news. Also, I wonder what our finance folks is thinking.
It's a bit of a business burn.
Another one is that we suffer what we call the Jaws phenomena. We're going to need a bigger boat. Which is true, because we actually said, oh, just like more compute, more this and that. I think that's something that's going to be changing around.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
Anyway, so that was a great keynote over there to talk to.
I love that.
And again, one of the things that I took away, the combination of man and machine. Think about what is for humans that is easy for machines, and what is easy for humans that can be hard for machines. So this is kind of the work that you're doing. Try to employ that. Like, this is how we find that balance right there. What else do we have? For any closing? I got a couple more.
I'm thinking about AI stuff. Thinking about the keynote around sort of psychology.
So before we go through, again, how to notice change. But the talk that I went to about behavioral science when it comes to applying stewardship for data stewardship, and I think these two things combine. Like you want to be able to, in the Keisha Road said, establish a common ground. So instead of I'm right and you're wrong, and here's the data supporting that I'm right, like let's focus on what we agree on, not on what we disagree on.
Yep.
If we think about psychology, is how we should be able to start thinking about. We want to make these changes in governance, which how we make this governance and meta. I mean, we know it's important right now, but it's not cool. How do we make it cool? I think that's one of the things that we need to think about, this behavioral science and how to change human behavior around things.
I really enjoyed the talk from Tally, and I think that what's cool is she tied in all of these psychology research aspects in terms of giving you an idea of how to actually affect change in a way that's going to be lasting and acknowledge that are in place. And so, for one example, I thought that was at least it had a big impact for me, was she talked about doctors. And they were trying to get them to wash their hands with very high compliance, right? And when they first kind of started off, the compliance was at around 30% for this particular kind of did they wash it right after kind of when they needed to wash it, right? And what they found was if they just did like you must do it. This candidate, they wouldn't change. But if they rewarded saying, "Bob, you washed your hands," and they put a little sign right at the sink, great, the right there, and there's an immediate got the immediate hit of like, yes, I'm doing a good job. And they got the social proof of watching the number go up as the entire team was working together. So it just makes you our own businesses, right? Like things like when your boss is like, good job, man. That's so corny, right? But then, like, you think about it, like, actually, these are like positive psychology things that help us to do some of the things that maybe feel like eating our vegetables, right? Like some of the things that we don't necessarily want to do.
This is exactly the point. I think I bring this up again, like metadata, to do all this stuff, like it's like eating your vegetables. It's like, okay, how do we make eating our vegetables fun? And I think these are examples from psychology we can use. We talk specifically, it's like highlight opportunities for progress rather than was sugarcoating it. You want to highlight what needs to be done to be able to get to that outcome. Identify these immediate. So there's small things that can be done, or also these nudges, right? And what was interesting about on behavioral science, like nudges are kind of out there in front of you instead of like you have to go. Social proof, right? Is you want to highlight the positive reactions of others. So, people, 10 people, like,
gave the example for I think it was the UK taxes, right? And she was saying the trying to submit their taxes on time. And even though they would say, like, hey, if you don't turn your taxes in on time, blah, 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 it's going to be a problem. It wasn't changing. And then they added just one line on the notice that said 9 out of 10 people in Britain are submitting their taxes on time. Where you say, oh, well, I don't want to be the 1 out of 10.
And that changed. Like that was like immediately you could see the change around that stuff by adding that one extra sentence.
Yep. And it added, another $5 billion or whatever in revenue to the country. Yeah.
So a couple other things we said: expand the sense of control, especially during times of change. So instead of telling folks what to do, give them a choice. And when they make that choice, they rationalize what they chose, and they're confident about that. And I think this is one of the things that this is how we can combine man and machine, right? And technology is like, hey, we need to go do this, and like, well, okay. does that mean that I should go automate and do everything? But no, I think there's a balance, and we can say, hey, the machine did all this stuff. Now to the person, you say, hey, here's a choice. Tell us which is the best one. So now they have to make a choice, and we can now kind of do that combination of what needs to be stewardship with what needs to be automated. And then another one is like consider the emotional state. So when are people the happiest? For example, they're asking the question: if you want to go, you're going on vacation. When are you the happiest? So for the vacation or during the vacation, happiest is the day before going to vacation, because you have that anticipation. That immediate word is that anticipation for something that's fun. And actually, there's like she asked people in the crowd, what is your favorite day of the week? Monday, well, nobody. Tuesday, things. Wednesday, Friday was where most people raise their hand.
Yeah. Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday. Saturday, Sunday wasn't. Even though Sunday's a day that you're off.
Yeah.
And you should be enjoying yourself, but you just have the anticipation of the week. So Friday, which is actually a work day, the day before your days off, is when you have you're most happiest.
Yeah. You're excited for your Saturday, and then when you actually get to Saturday, it wasn't as great as you expected. You're like, oh, bummer, right? Friday was the day you were excited. Yeah, it's Friday. Another funny example that she gave that was related to this, she called it a bonus item, was creating anticipatory events. And she talked about research where they said to the people participating in the study, hey, imagine your favorite celebrity, right? Now imagine that they're going to give you a kiss. Your favorite celebrity is going to kiss you. So hopefully you picked a good celebrity. So if I picked like Tom Hanks or something, I'm like, I don't know if I want a kiss from Tom Hanks. So I didn't pick well. And they said, okay, choose one, and you would expect people like, oh, well, I want it like now, like I want it 5 minutes from now, right? But no, the peak was actually 3 days from now. People wanted to relish in the fact that they were going to get a kiss. It's the anticipation of the kiss that is actually more powerful than the kiss itself.
Yep.
So anticipation, create anticipatory events.
So about AI, we talked a lot about being AI ready data, and then there's data products. We talked about business value. We talked about the psychology, behavioral science, and obviously metadata and knowledge graphs. I think those are the thing where it still stands out.
I'm trying to look through and see if in our notes if there's anything else. I'm not sure if there is. I mean, one last thing I'll note is, on the topic of AI ready data, I do think it's interesting to think about how AI ready might mean something different depending on different AI techniques, right? If you're doing machine learning, if you're doing generative AI, if you're doing more like traditional style analysis, like being AI ready is going to mean something different. So I thought that was a good insight.
One more is that came up a lot was unexplainability and trust. And what's really interesting is that we live in this chaotic world, and we need to go deal with it to be able to go deal with have all this data for AI and stuff. But one of the things that we've come from this wanting to have this single version of the truth type of stuff, but now we actually, even though we've tried and worked so much in having a single version of the truth, we've got to the point that we don't trust it. We don't trust anything. Because there's like so much misinformation and stuff. Yep. So this is one of the big issues that we're seeing. And I think the issue is not that we don't trust the data, it's that we don't even trust ourselves. Yep. That was an interesting point. And I know we always talk about garbage in and garbage out. So the problem is go out. That whatever goes in, we always expect that to be the right thing. So this is why I think there is this big. I think this is something we all need to work on and figure out, how do we trust? How do we generate trust? And trust, that means that we need to really be able to go talk to the end users, and ties us back to what are the use cases, right? So what are the expectations? What are the users? What are they expecting? We need to go have these conversations. What do you expect trust to be? About how we explain things, which we need a lot of more stories. It's really interesting. Explain the explanations of what's happening. We need to have and be very transparent about expectations of things. And again, and all this metadata, those explanations, we need to have that storytelling to be able to share with others. what that trust is, and make sure that we're meeting with the expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a stat that 22% of storytelling. So which mean that kind of means that a lot of companies are starting to value the importance of data storytelling, but it should probably be way higher than that. They're really trying to make a difference. This is just one last thing I can think of in terms of a key insight, and I think it kind of sums up a lot of what we were talking about today. That is the importance of the business value around data management, around data analysis. And they showed some research at Gartner that basically showed that organizations that in maturity really they have 30% financial performance. And I think some leaders, we get wrapped up in the technology, or we get wrapped up ourselves, implicitly or explicitly, cost center. We have to remember, fucking help the right. If you're not, if we more money, and we have to think like that. We got to think in terms of ROI.
And it's not just ROI; it's about the business outcomes, and I think that's what's super important. It's tied to the business outcomes and organization values, and make sure you're very quickly. What didn't come up in the conference?
Things that we're expecting to see.
Yeah, so I'll bring one up. Okay. Agents. Where your agents, but not here. And I'll argue. I mean, Gartner, the honest, no BS is that Gartner usually kind of covers things that's happening. So this is what's starting to happen now. So I'm surprised if next year, or at least in Orlando next year, we're hearing more about agents. I think that's one.
Yeah, because that is a bit of a miss, because agent-based architecture is all the talk of Gen AI and LLMs. There was basic, very weird. Another thing that was a big miss was that we hit it a little bit. We're talking about positions. There wasn't a lot of talk about unstructured data at all. Like, most of the conversation was talking around structured data. I mean, text data, vector databases, unstructured data. It came up a little bit, but like kind of more like it would show up in a slide, and it would be like a thing in the corner of the slide. It wasn't a major topic, and I think that in the context of Gen AI and around data management, like how should data leaders be thinking about unstructured data? Like, I don't think that anybody came away with an answer to that question.
That is true. For years, starting from modern data is alive and dead, data mesh, data fabric. 4 years, metadata, knowledge graphs continues to be a thing, right? Governance continues to be a thing.
Where are we, Juan? Where are we going to be 4 years from now?
Oh, I have no idea. Well, okay. I pilots you're going to be heading towards this world that will have our true assistants, or that will know what they know, but they will know what they don't know. Be very explicit about it, and then they'll help us kind of learn more what's missing. That's what I think would be, and that is structured, all the combinations and stuff, and it's like and all these agents. It's I think that's where we're going, and that's where I'm going to be working on and making that reality, that vision, a reality.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Where are we going to be in 4 years?
So I'm going to pick one thing specific, and that is, I'm going to leave it a little bit of an unknown, so it's a little bit of a cop out. But I've been talking to Juan a little bit about this lately, and I've been talking to a few others about this. I call it context war. Is a reasonable talk about. The power is shifting to whatever tool or platform owns the context of business. And I'm not talking about the data. I'm talking about the knowledge.
The metadata.
Yeah, the metadata. The metadata and the ontology that hold the metadata together, along with that but needs to live in a system, right? The context, that context layer, that context engine. That's where the power is going to be.
Oh,
but the open-ended question that I just don't know the answer to is, live in your BI tool? Live in your unified data platform integration tool? Is it going to live in your transformation tool, your DBT, or what, right? Live in your catalog or your knowledge graph or your knowledge graph based catalog, right? And that's going to be the place where the context lives, and that is the semantic layer. I don't know.
Well, I know. I think it needs to be in the knowledge graph.
I think it needs to be the knowledge
graph. That's
graph.
My position, and I'm not saying this because of from a salesy perspective. My evidence is I've dedicated my entire career to this shit. Is that this is an independent layer outside of your data, outside of it needs to be able to connect stuff. I think it needs to be governed, needs to be independent, needs to be based on open standards, because this is the critical data you have, right? Knowledge about your business, the context. You think about it this way: it's like you should be able to go describe your business and stick it in. This is actually a kind of analogy I bring from Ora Lasola. You should be able to put how business works to a thumb drive and stick it. And 100 years from now, somebody should be able to find that, and assuming they can get the thumb drive to go in, right? Be able to get that, and because it's machinable and because it's open standards, they should be able to go look at it and like, oh, this is how this business worked. This is how this organization worked.
Yeah.
So that's when you need to go to, and so. Yeah, I think that should be independent, and I like this context where things I can see people are going to be.
I think there's
shifting things around.
I think we're already starting to enter this context war period. This context war period is going to maybe last the good part of this 4 years, and if we make the right choices, then I think when we answer the question, hey, what is the heart of your data stack, right? Right now, I think today would people probably be like, oh, my data warehouse is probably the heart of my data stack, right? I hope that 4 years from now, people will say my knowledge graph is the heart of my data stack.
Let's leave it like that.
Yeah, let's see if we get there. Yeah, and I hope we will.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, to another 4 years.
To the next 4 years.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna do podcasts for another 4 years, but we'll still be hanging out.
The honest no BS will continue in one shape, form, or another. Cheers to data.world that lets us drink cocktails and wax philosophical about data and go to awesome conferences and meet amazing people like you. And thank you to all of you for being amazing listeners.
And
we
just
love you.
Shout out to all the listeners that we met this week here at Gartner.
Yeah.
You're the reason why we can do this. Like, there's just so many cool people that we get to meet. Thank you so much for everybody.
Appreciate the love, and cheers to you all.
And
and
folks in London, see you Friday.